Hello there, people and listeners of the Hungry Podcast. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back Ed Williams onto the podcast. Ed is the co-founder of Kittens, who make gourmet sweets. Kittens runs one listings at Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Morisson's, Tesco, Ocado, Co-op, Asda. I think you've kind of got a full house at least British distribution. And yeah, second time on the podcast for Ed. And look, man, I'm so happy we're doing this face-to-face this time in your wonderful abode.
Yeah,
thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
No worries. No, it's a pleasure. And yeah, good. We really enjoyed chatting the first time around. It's nice to, as you say, the more and more things coming face-to-face now, right? So it's good to be back in person.
You just don't get that same like connection. It's much better. Like if I'm trying to interview someone in a different country, but it's just you don't get that same kind of conversation.
It's the same vibe.
So I know there's so much we can talk about and explore, but what I wanted to start with is this notion of the power of doing one thing well, because that speaks deeply to my deeply to my soul and deeply to my sort of scatty brain that tries to do a gazillion things all at once.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes that I've been kind of like just trying to almost program into my brain is a quote by Steve Jobs, which is, "Focus is saying no."
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say no. But I suppose what I'd like to start with is why for you personally and the Candy Kittens journey is doing one thing well such a superpower? I'd love to kind of explore that.
I would say it probably hasn't always been our superpower, but it's becoming one of them. And all of us, I think, have a kind of disposition to, as all of us as kind of founders or business kind of leaders can see things perhaps a bit quicker, and therefore you see all these different opportunities and all these different ideas, and you want to go for it all. And speaking for myself, I'm quite impatient, so I kind of see these things and I want to make them all happen at once. And when you start, there's a million different ways in which you can take the business, and actually we learned over time that a focus is probably the most important thing, and actually being able to go and say, okay, that's what we really want to be, and really kind of single-mindedly go after that thing, I think can get you there much quicker. It's a harder route, but actually it's the thing that drives us on. Like, sort of examples of that, when we started, we would make, we had lots of pop-up shops. So we did merchandise alongside our sweets, and we sell lots of different bits. We do some events, some of this, some of that. And we say, okay, well, if we want to have this clear vision, which is we want to make gourmet sweets and we want to make the best sweet possible, but then on the side of that, we're going to sell you a t-shirt for 20 quid that's got our logo printed on it. Is that the best t-shirt possible? No. So how can you say you're a company that sells the best sweets, but then you're also happy to sell cheap t-shirts on the side? You either do, that it's hard to do everything at that gourmet level, but you can focus just in on sweets and say, okay, sack everything else off. Let's just really put all of our energy into that one thing. And I think it's been the kind of making of the brand over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, where we've gone, okay, nothing else matters. We're going to put double down all energy into the sweets, and let's really, really focus and get obsessive about that thing. And it's hard to be obsessive about 50 things. You can only really do it on one.
I mean, yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, or preaching to the need. I mean, before we hit the record button, I was like, I've just set up this business. I don't know what it really is at the minute. I'm in that sort of.
But I think you also have to be at that stage, right? I think, how else do you figure it out?
Yeah. I mean, it's great saying. I interviewed a guy who does a lot of strategy, and he basically said the first 2 years is serendipity. Yeah. Where you got to throw a lot of shit at the wall, find out what it is, and then you focus. Yeah. So I think anyone listening to this it's like you've got to have that period of like, okay, maybe I do want to do pop-ups, maybe I do want to do t-shirts. Yeah. To allow you to focus, because sometimes if you focus on the wrong thing straight away.
Absolutely.
If you were to focus on, say, t-shirts straight away, then you wouldn't be here. So it's like you do.
You sort of have to then back the winner, right? And you go, that's the thing that's got the most potential. That's the thing that's working best, or where we've carved a niche, or whatever it is. And then you can kind of go in on it.
And also, because I think we almost have a kind of different sets of listeners to this. We've got people who write super early. Yeah. And then people who are a bit further on. And I think the people further on need to focus. Yeah. But the people early, it's like that's when you've got opportunity to be carte blanche and do different things, try different things. But I want to go talk about this kind of the ability to say no to opportunities, because it's so hard to do. Yeah. And I'd love to know, what's the hardest thing you as founder, CEO, have had to say no to?
I think one of the biggest learnings for me was sort of around the range in our product range. So really trying to slim that down has been a big... Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Start again if you like.
Yeah, no, no worries.
So I think the biggest learning probably for me has been around the range.
You like to sit a little bit closer?
Yeah, of course I can, yeah.
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
So I think the biggest learning for me has been around the product range.
Yeah.
And actually trying to slim that down over time. So again, when you start, you throw everything against the wall and kind of see what works. And the temptation, particularly when you're dealing with retailers, is always to sell them a new thing. So how can I increase my sales at Waitrose? Okay, well, what I'll do is add 3 new SKUs. And there's a sort of big, easy trap to fall into there, that's the way to grow. Whereas actually smart people will work out how to sell more of the thing they've already got. And the easy, perhaps stupid thing to do, which is where we definitely were, is let's sell more things. And actually, if you can think about selling more of the thing you already have, it's obviously a better way to do business. So that was a big, big learning, and forcing ourselves then to say no to products that perhaps we liked personally. Got rid of apple and elderflower, which was my wife's favorite flavor.
Right.
You do these things and I love it, but the rate of sale is just not there. So let's can that. And you always can convince yourself that, it will work when we get to this point, or it's going to work when we get there. So not being too emotional or too attached to products or ideas or campaigns, whatever it might be. I think it's quite an important way to do that. Just stick to what works and be less emotional about it.
I think it's this whole brand bubble thing. It's like a fish doesn't know it's in water.
Yeah.
I think there's a brand bubble where a brand gets so obsessed with the team in say like The Office. You've seen it firsthand. You're like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. This piece of MPD. Consumers going to love it because we love it. And then it goes out into the big bad world of retail and people just don't buy it. And I think you've got to almost be like a fish out of water and be like, just because just because you love it in your office and the board meetings. Yeah. And obviously our industry is everyone's pally, so everyone's talking to each other. But actually the consumer in the, wherever, arse and nowhere doesn't really care. But I think what you said there about selling more of the thing you've got is a really good point, because you see so many brands probably, once they've done the focus bit, they actually try and go across with their range and do more NPD to bring more people into the category, keep the retailers sweet, etc. How are you doing that? Like, how are you selling more of the same thing?
To be honest, just purely by not offering more at breadth, you actually then can focus more on what you have. So if you give the consumer too much choice, it's like the Netflix effect, right? Where you sit there all night scrolling through the menu and end up probably not watching anything. Yeah. Whereas if I just stick BBC One on, I'll sit there and just enjoy whatever's on BBC One. So I think if you're giving the consumer at shelf less choice, then automatically the sales start to come through the products that are there. And through focusing on that with the retailers, obviously, we're not then offering, okay, we've got this new product, let's put that on the secondary site. Well, no, let's just put the core product that's already selling quite well on the secondary site in order to boost the core kind of rate of sale later on. So that's been a kind of automatic win without really much clever thinking behind it. The hard bit is, okay, which products are we going to sell? And then once you've got those, just putting those products in the right places. So that's been a bit of a lesson for me. And another real obvious one is this thing around backing the winners. So looking at the range and going, okay, which products sell the best? Let's make sure that the best selling products are in the best distribution. And again, temptation, I think, from somebody like myself who's started and really proud always of the new idea, is that you go, we've got this new product. I'd love you to put our latest product, Shocks, in more stores, or I'd love you to put Loves, our new product, in secondary site or shippers around all your stores. Would be nice to have, but actually we know now that there's much more value to us in continuing to build sour watermelon sales, which have been a product we've had since day one. And if we can just put that product in secondary site or that product in more stores, that builds longer term value, and Loves will come later. And
so with the Shocks and the Loves, are you... So that to me, sorry, like I don't know your full range, but that appears like you're doing a bit of breadth. How come you're doing that? Is that to use? So how are you using that NPD is basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, so that does now support cores. We have a range of 4 core flavors, right? And then we introduce these kind of singular We call them internally packs with purpose. So loves is about supporting the LGBTQ plus community. Shocks is a message within that around climate change and how you can make a change that doesn't have to be shocking to you personally to make a difference. And these will kind of maybe come and go, but they're kind of singular products that allow us to celebrate a moment in time, talk to the audience about something that they care about. But ultimately, it sort of feeds back into building the brand, and 80% of our sales will probably still come from that core 4 flavors.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's almost like it's a product, but it's also a bigger marketing piece
It's
as well.
kind of a marketing piece.
Yeah,
and it's
that's
another
really
way another excuse to introduce them back into the main brand, and then perhaps they try that thing once. It's also something where we can test sort of technical innovations. So Shocks is a slightly different texture. It's a new sour coating, something that's a bit different that we wouldn't probably be willing to drop straight into the core range that's up and running. But if it works really well over there, then maybe over time we can start to sprinkle that kind of magic back into the core as well.
Hey, I love that, because one of the questions I've been trying to get to I've done about 80 of these now. It's how it's almost the MPD paradox. It's like if you don't innovate, you die, which is really cool, the American way of saying it. It's true. Yeah. Innovate too much and you spread yourself super thin. Yeah. But I suppose what I'm getting from you is you're basically saying like, we've got our 4, we're going to push them like hell. That's our 70% almost. Yeah. But we're going to allow an extra 30% and I see it as a marketing play with the Shocks and the loves. But that allows us to keep the magic alive there. Yeah. And I think I interviewed Camilla Barnard from Rude Health. Yeah, okay, cool. And she was saying this was an example of where it does just work. I mean, they threw everything at the wall. Yeah. I mean, they were launching kombuchas, like all sorts. Milk alternatives. And then they found their superhero or their super product and then focused. Yep. So I think it's just interesting kind of pulling at that. Like,
there's always, there's an exception, right, to every rule. Yeah. But I think about the brands like Oatly, like, okay, you've gone oat milk and you've just gone skyrocketed in that category. Yeah. Why? Because you've just done one thing. Yes, okay, they have varieties of that one thing. You could sort of rip it apart a bit, but fundamentally they're an oat milk. Yeah. Everybody knows that. So if you say to people on the street, name an oat milk or what's Oatly, they are synonymous with that category. Very difficult to do that, I think, if you are a brand that's in multiple categories. And there's obviously lots of people that somehow manage to make that work. But for us, we really, really believe in that focus and being kind of singular in the approach.
And I want to go to those early days because these are the bits I'm in now. And one of the I actually was writing about one of the things you told me last time in my newsletter, which is this. So what? I don't even remember that. Telling me that. I'm just like, Yuli's listing. So what? Yeah. Something goes wrong. So what? Like the world's going to keep spinning, mate. It's basically stoicism in a sentence. Yeah. It's such a good point.
I didn't feel that smart when I said it, but it's nice to someone else saw it.
It was. I took a lot of value from it, and but it actually works both ways because Rebecca from the co-op came on and was like, always ask, so what? So it's like, we've got a great product, so what? And then it's like, well, so you make a high cash margin, so it's great for sales as well. Yeah. But right now I feel like I'm sort of rowing through sort of seas on uncertainty, like just winds of it's just intense at the minute. Yeah. It's scary. In those first 2 to 3 years, like how did you keep on keeping on? And were there any like kind of cataclysmic setbacks when you're like, is this going to work? Because, we're like 10 years down the line now.
Yeah. I think, all the usual challenges around hiring, around cash, because we never ever have enough. And all the product challenges of trying to persuade big manufacturing machines to take a gamble on a small idea. But I think the thing that always has to keep you going is then that fundamental belief that you're kind of onto something and it's going to get there. And again, coming back to this one thing, if you can articulate that belief in a sentence, and that old sort of trope about if you can explain your business to a 4-year-old, then you're onto something good. And I think that's the thing that we knew is, okay, if we can make sweets better, there is a opportunity there. There is this kind of massive white space or whatever you want to kind of call it. So, and even though we're not nailing it today, there's still nobody else even looking at this space or talking about it. So we know that we're kind of ahead of the pack. So it was that idea of being able to believe it, being able to continue to see the opportunity and just not losing sight of that. I think at times when it doesn't work, that would have been where we could have said, well, actually, we just sold 10,000 t-shirts last quarter.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be a t-shirt brand.
Yeah.
And if we'd taken that path, how many million t-shirt brands are there out there already? It's nothing new. It's nothing exciting. So when the opportunities came to sort of veer off course, I think that's where we were quite good at saying, no, let's carry on doing the job we started. And yeah, I guess that's probably what kept us going. I don't know. We don't probably think about it too much at the time, but yeah.
Yeah, no. It's just because there'll be people listening right now who, they may have just, you've been in the trade show in Germany. They're on trade show, they haven't had much, success or whatever. They're thinking, how do I continue? Yeah. I suppose I'm just trying to go into that. Like, was there it's more of a sort of a specific day that was like sticks out? It was like, that was rough.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple. I mean, there was a moment that Jamie and I probably talk about quite often. That is, we ran out of cash. We had sort of 2 or 3 hours to find. I think it was about 25 to 30 grand, which at the time was like, well, it still is a lot of money, but at the time was like more money than we could dream of. And we literally had to sit down either side of a table in a meeting room in our office, calling everybody that we could think of that maybe could scrape together 500 quid, 1,000 pounds, whatever it might be, and give us that money. And we managed to get the money in sort of, a few hours through family and friends that were very generous and believed us. And that afternoon, we were able to pay the wage bill and carry on going for another month. And it was just enough until the next sale came in or whatever it was. So there were a few really hairy moments like that, but we were so blindly optimistic about the future.
Yeah.
And also probably quite naive. I listened to your podcast with the guys from BioMe, and he was talking about the ages of when to be a good entrepreneur. Maybe when you're young, which we were, we had nothing to lose. I've now got a house and I've got a little boy and married. Those things, the decisions probably weigh on you a little bit heavier. And at that time, we had nothing to lose. So Jamie and I said, well, if we have to, sleep on the floor somewhere and keep this going, then we will. And that was the kind of attitude, maybe stupidity more than wisdom, but it was able just to kind of go kind of carefree, I suppose.
Something you guys taught me is naivety is a superpower.
Yeah.
And the more I've read about that, it's so true. Like James Dyson, if I say who, I think that he, his whole thing is he doesn't hire anyone but you've got to stay naive as you get older. Naive as you get older. And I think, I stumbled across your Instagram last night, mate, and I was like, you've done all the research for me, because that thing on the wall.
Yeah.
Some of those aphorisms, it was amazing. But I think one of them was, if the idea is already, they're going to have to help me here. If the idea is already done, then it's like, it's not a new...
I can't remember that word for word, but something like, old ideas don't open new doors. That is one of them that we have. And I think that it's so true. And probably one of the scariest things as the business grows is how do we keep that naivety, like the Dyson example.
How are you doing that? Because that was one of my questions. Like,
I think it's just making a real conscious effort not to be like them. And by them, I mean the kind of big corporations, the big businesses that rule the FMCG world. Jamie and I spoke recently on stage at the Grocer conference and get invited down there. And then you sit in the audience, watch the first couple of kind of keynotes before we went on. And we were both looking at each other like, we're really out of our depth this time. There's like marketing director of PepsiCo, the team from M&S, the team from Tesco or whatever. And you sat there like, oh my God, we're absolute idiots compared to these people, because real imposter syndrome. And then you get up on stage and actually we just told our story and went through the ways that we do things without really any sophisticated slides, zero data to back it up, just kind of spoke from the heart. And the amount of messages and kind of nice comments that we received after that event were really, really humbling. And I think it's just, it's easy to forget how differently we are doing things. And that room of 300 people or whatever, are kind of bored of that old way of doing things. We were impressed because we were like, oh, wow, that's the gold standard. That's how the real grown-ups in the room are doing it. But actually, all those grown-ups were more interested in listening sort of how to unlearn that stuff. So yeah, how do we do it? I guess being really deliberate about not becoming that. We do now hire people from companies that, where they've been there and done that at bigger businesses, but trying to train that out of them is something that we focus on as well. So we don't go for the gap training for negotiating or the this or that kind of industry standard stuff. We try and keep it a bit more interesting and take reference more when we're thinking about MPD or thinking about marketing campaigns from perhaps a fashion brand or a musician or how is Kanye West launching his next album? How is Nike launching the next pair of trainers? Not thinking about how Yakult launched the next yogurt.
So it's so true. I was talking about this with the guest last week about same inputs equals same outputs.
Yeah.
So it's like, if everyone goes on that gap course, ultimately they're all negotiating the same.
Yeah.
You put the buyers on the course, you put the salespeople in the course.
Yeah,
it's like
mad.
you're getting nowhere.
Gap are winning, but nobody else.
Exactly. And it's like, and then actually, if every founder is, the kind of in the zeitgeist now, and I actually do this, I'm probably part of it, but the cold bath, all that.
Yeah.
I don't do a cold bath, but cold shower.
Yeah.
Meditation. Everyone's doing that now. And I think that does have a net positive. But ultimately, when you're a challenger brand, you're trying to find that 1% to 2% edge.
Yep.
If you're doing what everyone else is doing, then you're going to end up in the same place as everyone else.
Yep.
And you're a bit of an outlier, I think, in terms of, because you're one of the only brands that hasn't had, from my eyes, real competition in terms of a challenger brand coming in. Oat milk, so we talked about, loads. I mean, that is just a mental category. Peanut butter, mental category. Chocolate that I'm in now, mental category.
Yeah.
And Peter Thiel's got this, he's got a book that I love called 0 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a quote in there. Let me just find this. Where is it? Aim for creative monopoly, escape competition.
Yeah.
And I kind of do think you guys have done that. And the first question he says in that book is, what is one truth that you believe that everyone else disagrees with? And it's really going back to that point of when you and Jamie were at the Grocery Awards and you were like, oh God, well, guess what? You were feeling insecure and imposter syndrome. Well, guess what? Everyone was looking at you.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, what is like maybe one truth or something you really believe in that most people would disagree with you on?
I think there's a couple, right? And it's nice to hear all those nice things said about you, but I think we still can't quite believe that we're in that position. We're so clear that there's an opportunity here that we're also surprised that nobody else is kind of coming toe for toe with us to have a go at that. So we're sort of always sort of looking over our shoulder a little bit. But I think the truths probably are, there's a place for premium within confectionery, and there's definitely the consumer wants a better product. Whether that's within the brand where we kind of started, that was really, really the kind of the sort of very, very key insight for us was that there could be a better brand here. Everybody enjoys sweets. It's a fun thing, but there's only sweets for kids or the sweets for your grandma, nothing in between. And that's where it started. And then when we realized that was sort of working, it was then about a product for that person as well. So plant-based is the biggest innovation in our category, and I think we're kind of leading the charge in terms of a plant-based product that not only tastes kind of as good as a gelatin product, but better. So that's really important. But I think overall, we are absolutely confident that there's a place for better sweets, however you want to package that up, whatever words you want to put on it. When we started, we spoke to factories all over the world, to be honest, and we said, okay, we want a plant-based. Plant-based is that's just a fad. That's never going to take off. That's just for Holland and Barrett and some health farms. Don't worry about it. Okay, we want natural ingredients, NAFNAC, natural flavors, natural colors. Don't worry about that. That's just a bit of a fad, maybe for London, but it's never going to be a big thing in supermarkets. And again, all these kind of things that we talked about, stand-up pouches. Oh, you shouldn't do that. They're going to be too expensive, or whatever. And I think that's the thing that we still believe now, and you still see the biggest players in the category trying to sell higher weight bags for a lower price and just race to the bottom, right? Everybody's trying to go for this £1 magic price point, and they get so fixated on the price point that everything else actually becomes quite secondary. So you have MPD teams at these big organizations developing to get to £1, not developing to create a product that people like. And I think they really take their eye off the ball there. HFSS is another massive kind of speed bump that's come and hit the industry. And so many conversations we've had over the last 12 months, whether it's with retailers or whoever else, sort of say, what are you going to do about HFSS? And our answer has just been nothing. We're a sweets company. We're delivering a really worthwhile, indulgent treat for our consumer. And until the consumer decides they want something different, then we're not going to change. And lots of the big guys, the Haribo's, Nestle's, the Rowntrees, whoever of the world, ran around like headless chickens, creating all these new products that are sugar-free and whatever else, just to get to that score that meant that they were compliant within HFSS legislation. And from what I can see, none of that really seems to be working. It's just a product that was created for legislation. And if you ask a consumer what HFSS is, they don't even know what that means yet. So being focused on the consumer and really believing that there's space for something better, I think is the bit that has allowed us to win, and just not letting any of those outside influences sort of creep in, particularly the ones that are the kind of industry, in inverted commas, experienced opinions. They're the ones that I think can really kill a good idea.
Mate, I love that. That's literally what James Dyson says, is he goes, don't listen to people who are experienced. And it goes back to this fish in the water thing. It's like, as brands, I remember everyone going, fucking hell, HFSS. Yeah. It's going to be like the end of the world.
Yeah.
I go to the pub with my mates. They're like, mate, what the fuck?
What is that?
Yeah. I mean, only us as brands recognise when you see a Twix that's basically a granola bar.
Yeah.
And I think there's a point in there of, you've clearly got deep roots. I believe business is like a tree. Like if you actually flip upside down, that is the organisational chart.
Yeah.
Once you've got deep roots, you can kind of an unshakable belief. You can, stay strong when those winds are strong.
Yep.
And I think there's so much in that for people listening to that, is like staying true to who you are amidst the adversity.
Trying our best.
But one thing you said in talking about how you stay naive as you grow is untraining corporate beliefs. Mm-hmm. Like, that was delicious. Like, so is there like a specific example of some of the things you do to say a new person starts, say tomorrow, but like for their first 3 to 6 months, how are you making them think more like a challenger?
So I think this kind of, the basic things of kind of literal signposting stuff around the office. We've kind of got ideas and things written on the wall in places, and this disruptive attitude that was printed out on the stairs outside that, you referenced. Those kind of things that try and hopefully sort of, sounds a bit culty when you say it out loud, but kind of drumming those ideas into people's minds just to get people thinking a bit differently. I think one of the most successful things we've done is that we have a guest come and join the team once a week. So for an hour every week on a Wednesday or Thursday morning, a guest comes in and talks to us about their story, and we call it Sweet Talks, and it'll be Sweet Talks with whoever. And that person comes in and they just talk about their experience, what they've built or created. And it might be a founder of a business. It might be someone that's a senior role in a business. It might be a sports person, a musician, whatever, just to give us a different perspective. Because I think the problem is, if you spend all your time talking about your thing and getting so wrapped up in your world and your problems, everything else can sort of fade away into the background. So trying to bring other people's problems, other people's ideas and ways of thinking to the foreground, every single time we have someone come and speak to us, that you have another idea, another different perspective, another thing. And it might be something simple. Yeah. This morning, actually, we had a guest in the office, and it was Rob, who's one of the founders at Tribe.
Oh, I was speaking to him about coming on the podcast, actually.
Epic guy, and amazing story. And the way they've kind of founded that business comes from a real kind of authentic experience around running. And he told this whole story to the team, and everybody's talking about it still at lunchtime. Everyone's talking about, I might go and do this run. I might go and do my challenge myself to do this thing. And it just opens, rips the blinkers off and opens your eyes to a different way of doing things. So also, I suppose, not getting too, as much as we do try and create our own culture and create our own messaging around things and the Candy Kittens way of doing X, Y, Z, I think it's really important to make sure you've got lots of outside influence and you're changing the influence all the time as well. So it's not just me banging the same old drum. It's someone else coming and saying, well, we did it this way or we did it that way. And sometimes they're doing it better than us. Sometimes they're not doing it as good. So you can get inspiration from both.
100%. And I think it goes back to changing the inputs. You change the outputs. And it's like getting different people coming into the organization. And it's so easy for people listening to this. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, well, people want to talk.
People love that, right? I mean, yeah. So
I suppose the flip side of that is you're 10 years down the line. And I know for a fact that systems work. Like I did a big piece this year with the podcast about putting systems in place.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I wish I'd done that.
Yeah.
You know, especially for my sort of brain.
Yeah.
I'd like, what are some of the, if you could only pick one or two systems you'd wish you'd, as a brand, focused on, you know, in those early years, which you now have in place, you know, 10 years on?
I mean, I'm really not the systems guy, okay? But I think that I'm learning to love systems as well. And it's not my natural state, but absolutely see the value. And I think that there's a couple of things. I think finance is one that you just can't mess with and pretend. So the numbers are the numbers and you better know what they are. And I think that's the one thing that we've always done quite well. Having a really good structure in terms of how you're accounting, how you're managing that, how you're forecasting, budgeting, etc., allows you to be ready for the next stage, whatever that next stage might be. And having that for us in place early on meant that by the time we spoke to investors, by the time we spoke to retailers or whoever it was, we were prepared and we had quite a slick understanding of what we were talking about, and probably over-invested in that early on. So we were able to kind of present ourselves like a much bigger company than we were from day one. So that's really important. I think another thing that we spend quite a lot of time talking about is meetings. So how do you work as a team? What are your meetings like? So every meeting now, the aim, and we're not nailing it every time, so we're not absolutely not perfect, but the aim is that every meeting you go into has an agenda, has clear actions afterwards, has an objective that you know what you're all going in to get out of that meeting. It's so easy just to waste time. And that old kind of meme of another meeting that could have been an email, trying to get out of that. So every meeting should have some real value at Candy Kittens, and try and keep them all less than an hour. You know, if we can keep them to 30 minutes, that's the goal. Less number of people in that meeting. You know, how many meetings do you sit in within your company that are 10 people around a table and actually 2 or 3 of them are having the conversation and everyone else is there just tapping away on their laptop or whatever. And I think that's such a time drain in so many businesses. So trying to be quicker, trying to get things to happen quicker, and also maybe without meetings. So if we're in the office face to face, we're talking, let's just grab a quick call.
Yeah. That's what I've been doing.
Really much quicker. So trying to delete those as much as possible. We had a chat last week with a German company that we work with, a partner of ours, and they have 1 or 2 face-to-face meetings a week, and that's it. They're in the office 5 days a week, and all they have is 1 or 2 scheduled meetings a week. So everything else that happens in that company is all just conversations around the office. If you want something, walk up to someone's desk and ask them. And if you get into that meeting culture, everything becomes, oh, can we talk about this, Dan? Oh yeah, put some time in my diary tomorrow. And then you've just wasted 24 hours waiting for the time in the diary to then talk about the thing, and you catch up and you talk about everything else. Then that one thing is 5, you know, that's easy to see where you can save time.
Perry, I think I told you actually the other week, and he was like meetings for the sake of meetings, meetings. It's like, Jesus. No, completely. And I think there's a lot of,
sorry.
It's a delicate art, isn't it? Getting the right systems in place. Systems and magic are 2 things you need to kind of get to dance together.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately brands go too far one way, and you're going to find that sort of sweet,
absolutely, yeah,
middle ground. Where I want to go now, mate, is I don't know where I read, but I know you're obviously you're Welsh.
Yep.
Are you from Brecon? Where's
No. So I'm from a town called Caerphilly, which is about 8-9 miles outside of Cardiff.
Right, okay, because I used to work, weirdly, pre-Money Life in Brecon.
Okay, cool.
For a business called Beacon Foods.
Okay, yeah.
So they used to put me up in the Castle Hotel. I used to drive down there. We were trying to create the lovely family business.
Yeah.
Trying to create the equivalent of like Mojo. Anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Crash bang wallop, didn't work.
Right, okay.
I was like outside Liverpool Street train station at 5 a.m. trying to sell juice. It just didn't get going. But I'd love to talk about your kind of your Welsh roots and actually your obsession with brands, because Rory Sutherland I think he's from the Wye Valley, and he's obviously obsessed with brands.
Yeah,
I think it's just kind of interesting place to explore that I've never kind of explored before. So how did kind of like growing up in Wales or near, I know near Cardiff, but how did that give you a sort of pour kind of gasoline on your obsession with brands and business?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, what do I think? I think that we grew up in a very kind of, let me start the answer again. Interesting question. And I think for me, what Wales is a very different culture as just the community, the people. It's very community driven where I grew up in Caerphilly, and it's very, very down to earth. So there's no kind of airs and graces.
Sorry to interrupt. So is Caerphilly like, is that out in the sticks like Brecon, or is it more?
No, so more of it's quite a big town,
right?
But it's outside of Cardiff. And if you spoke to people in Cardiff, they'd think it's sort of right up in the valleys somewhere, and it is in the sticks. But it's not really. So it's quite a decent sized town, but actually everybody knows everyone, and you know the community, everybody's neighbours are kind of in and out of each other's houses, and that kind of thing is all pretty normal, right? Which I was shocked that doesn't happen elsewhere.
Yeah.
And what family, friends, everybody is always taking the mick out of each other. That's one thing that's kind of like my biggest memory of kind of growing up, and how it still is now if I go home. So nobody ever really inflates each other's egos or that kind of thing. And if you've got a good idea, someone's going to bring you crash back down to earth pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that's such an amazing thing, I think. Even 10 years into Candy Kittens now, nobody within my family or kind of friends at home is kind of giving me a slap on the back and telling me how well I've done. I know they're all really proud of it, but nobody's kind of inflating my ego and letting me run away with that idea, no matter what you go on to achieve. So that's a really nice thing, I think, that kind of keeps you firmly on the ground. And I guess then when I went off to uni, so I went to uni in Loughborough, suddenly had my eyes kind of really, really peeled back open to this much wider world and lots of different cultures and people and the way people work. I think that was a moment where I kind of got more interested in brand and more interested in what it means to different types of people. But I don't know, I guess coming from Wales and having that in my upbringing gave me much more sort of solid roots and foundations that perhaps I wouldn't get elsewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I find it fascinating, because one of the things I think Rory was saying is back in his day, it's like he was nowhere near. If you wanted to access a brand, then you had to go to the fucking towns.
Yeah.
So it was a long way. Whereas now, everyone can get Amazon wherever you are.
Yeah.
But I think I remember, so I was working for the business, a lovely business, and I went in after England had lost to Wales in the Six Nations. I mean, this is 2016, 2015. And got absolutely rollocked. And it was jokes, but they were so lovely. And what I kind of took from that was I was probably down there for about 8 months, but just a warmthness and a humbleness and a humility about doing things. And I think, it's just interesting speaking to you now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I think within, where I grew up, there's a lot of heart, a lot of honesty. And I think that's something that you can apply to brand quite effectively. People really are passionate, right? That's kind of a cliche about kind of the passionate of Welsh people or whatever, or Celtic people, but it's really, really true. And whether that's about the rugby or more recently around kind of Welsh football, like that brand of Welsh football is now so strong around the world. Yeah, okay, they've had some success at the Euros and different things, but really that's come down to people believing in the story. And I think we're quite good at that as Welsh people, as storytellers or whatever it may be. But really that honest heart, I think, is probably something that I maybe subconsciously have put into it.
Honest heart. And I think what you just said there about believe the story and tell the story, because I think one of your points is stick to the story, consistency is king, and believe the story.
Yeah.
So you've sort of teed me up there nicely, son. But I'd love to go into that. So what would you say? And we've talked about the heart coming from your kind of your roots, if you want to call that, in Wales. What would you say sort of the Candy Kitten story is, and why is consistency so king? Because I think with values, if you look at the opposite, you'll understand where they came from. Mm-hmm. So right at the beginning, we were saying focus is value. If you look at the opposite, it's because you weren't focused at the beginning. Yeah. Same with me, right? So the reason I say focus, say no, is because my brain's like that. So if we look at the opposite of why stick to the story, consistency is king, was there like a moment in time where you didn't believe in the story or you were unsure of the short story?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more remembering that you probably get bored of your own ideas quicker than other people have even caught on. So if we have a new marketing campaign and perhaps, a phrase. So for example, McDonald's have "I'm loving it." I can guarantee you that every single marketing director at McDonald's for the last 10 years has probably said, it's time to change this now. We need something new. Let's freshen it up. Let's go for something new. But whoever it is at McDonald's has gone, no, we're sticking with it. Let's stick to the story. Let's keep it consistent is the one that's kind of keeping that on track. And actually that line has probably been in circulation for maybe 25, 30 years. Maybe how long have you known it? Maybe you've been aware of it for 10 or 5 or whatever. And it's so easy, I think, to kind of try and reinvent the wheel and fix things when they don't need fixing. So that's one of the things is it's actually gourmet sweets is still the opportunity. That hasn't changed since day one, but it's very easy to go, okay, maybe we should come up with something new now. Maybe let's rebrand that. Let's reskin that. Let's put some more kind of glitter on it, whatever. And actually keeping it consistent, I think it takes a long time. I think, we're 10 years in and people still have a lot to learn, I think, about what we offer. So that's where that comes from, really, is just keep hammering the same old thing, even if you're bored of it yourself.
It's such a good point. And it's, I think, which guest I interviewed, I think it may have been Hub from Tenzing. And he's like, the best marketing campaign is the one you're bored of.
Yeah.
And David Ogilvy's got a quote, which I love, which is you're advertising to a marching army. A marching band, not a standing army.
Yeah.
And I've learned that with the podcast. So I've started repurposing videos from ages ago. And people are like, oh my God, you had him on.
Yeah. And you think, oh my God, everyone's seen this now.
I was like, everyone's seen this. So I'm just keep going with the same message.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, this new shiny toy syndrome.
Yeah.
That's kind of pervasive is just lock in and just keep it.
Yeah, there's a clever statistic about TV advertising, which I'm going to completely butcher and get wrong, but it's something like you have to see a TV ad something like 5 times before you even notice it. So it'll come up and you'll be on your phone or whatever and you won't even know it's there. Then the 6th time you actually recognize that and go, oh, hang on a minute, let's see what they're selling. And then you watch it and you have to watch it another 3 times before you then get to the point of consideration. So a TV ad maybe has to play for a minimum of 10 times before they've even got you to think about buying that product. And it's kind of similar with a buyer, right? The first time I go to a buyer and say, hey, we've got this idea for gourmet sweets, it's just in one ear out the other. They don't even hear you. So the next time I have to say the same thing again. And then they go, oh, actually, sorry, what are gourmet sweets? Oh, right. Okay. Now we're having a conversation. Then I've got the opportunity to sell it. And I think that's sort of how we're trying to view it with the team and the way we're talking. You kind of, otherwise you can think, oh, well, I told them about gourmet sweets last week and they know us, so actually keep going. And eventually they're hopefully going to listen.
And also it's like, if you can't get hold of the buyer via email, you can plug that same message, i.e. gourmet sweets, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Yeah. And so you as a brand can actually accelerate that the 10 times they've heard about it. Yeah. I think that's a really good piece of wisdom for listeners. It's like, just because they haven't heard it the first time, you've got to go a good 10.
And even maybe if they didn't get it the first time, it could also be, you've managed to get a face-to-face meeting and the meetings, you come out thinking, oh, they really didn't understand that. But actually putting it on their radar and then going again, they maybe don't understand it because they aren't thinking about that opportunity at the moment, or they aren't looking at that particular segment of the category or whatever, and they're not in the right frame of mind. Maybe they've had a bad morning or whatever's going on, right? And actually going back in, and if that is, obviously, if you think the idea is good enough, so you've got to stress test that yourself in the background. But once you're onto something,
just keep
consistency,
hammering, keep hammering. And I want to talk about creator packaged goods. Yeah. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast with John and Megan, so obviously Jamie's got a huge following. A huge quote unquote following in that it is a big following, but actually there's 67 million people in the UK. Yeah. So 1 million following, whatever it is, it's still quite small. Yeah. And I'd love to know kind of what has actually been despite Jamie's following, what have been sort of the unforeseen challenges building a brand? Because I know it's big in America, but this whole sort of creative package good things, I think it's surface level. It sounds like a banging idea.
Yep.
The reality is very different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a really interesting space. I think we're miles behind at the moment in the UK and Europe in terms of what that could start to look like. I think there's a few different ways that you can go about that. And in our case, authenticity at the heart of what we've done with Candy Kittens and Jamie's really, really important. So we've created posh sweets and we've got a posh bloke on the face of it, right? So there's what is Jamie? Well, he's posh, he's fun, he's energetic, and he's also that kind of bit of a spark in the room, right? He's there, comes in, lights up the place, goes again. That is also kind of exactly what we want to create with sweets. We want to create a posh product. We're better than the rest, a gourmet product. We want it to be fun and have like that energy about it. And it's also got to be that kind of lift in your day. And those two things then married up kind of literally kind of join the dots perfectly. Other people are launching things that for me just don't make sense. So I think it's got to be right. It's got to be, you can't have a sportsman that's face of a burger chain. That for me, that doesn't really work. So how do you make that fit make sense and then stretch it for a much longer period potentially than that individual's moment in the spotlight? So we absolutely use Jamie, and we use Jamie more and more for different kind of marketing things that we're doing. Particularly, Jamie's particularly strong now within the podcast world. So how do we lean into that as a brand? But one of the things we haven't done is put his face on the bag or his name on the packaging, or really kind of marry product and ambassador together kind of hand in hand. So there's an audience that definitely buy Candy Kittens because of Jamie. There's an audience that buy Candy Kittens because they see it on the shelf at Waitrose or Tesco or Sainsbury's and it serves a purpose for them. There's an audience that meet the brand for the first time because of Jamie, but then can buy it without having to admit that they knew it through Jamie. There's all these different kind of things working together. But I think the brands that take the really literal approach of, okay, so I'm fitness influencer. So here's my protein shake and it's called the Edwards protein.
Yeah.
It's a bit too obvious, a bit too literal. And I think that starts to struggle, right? You've got people like Joe Wicks, who's super influential and love what he's done. But, he launched a frying pan or whatever and it doesn't work because who wants to have a Joe Wicks frying pan in their nice new kitchen? Or it's kind of these kind of things. It can be a little bit too literal sometimes.
And also I think the stench of inauthenticity is consumers are so savvy now.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel...
It doesn't,
it just doesn't work.
But what I think is interesting is how, as you say, you can sort of Jamie's profile brings shoppers in.
Yeah.
But equally so does distribution.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know what have been some of those challenges of building a gourmet sweet brand and driving that rate of sale in areas that may not know Jamie, may not may be more privy to buying kind of a pack of Haribo. Like, how have you done that? What's the challenges been there?
So I think that's a lot of our work is around that. Getting consumers to try the product for the first time is super important. So we have something like a trial to conversion rate of something like 80%. So 80% of people that try our product will go on to buy it, which is huge. So we know that. So all we've got to do is get you to try it for the first time. And then you realize that kind of light bulb moment of, okay, so it's worth spending a little bit more on this because it's so much better. So that's a lot of sampling, a lot of kind of trial driving activities. I think distribution has been massive for that as well. So the more times we can be toe to toe on the shelf with the Haribo and give the consumer a choice, that I think is one of the things we're most excited about. For so long, there's not been a choice in this category. If you wanted sweets, you're going to have to keep eating the sweets that you've been eating your whole life. All of a sudden, bang, there's kind of a new kid on the block and we can give you a choice and disrupt that thought process a little bit. So that's important. And obviously doing that through things like secondary space in store, trying to disrupt you walk around the store, etc., helps. But I think standing firm on price is another one. So yes, we're gourmet. That means we are more expensive because we've got better ingredients, better packaging, and all the rest of it. We have to charge more for that. So there's been so many times where lots of different buyers would have loved us to lower the price and promise you the world. We can give you all of our stores if you can just get it to £1. And I'll be honest, we've had quite a lot of serious conversations back in this room where we go, okay, should we do it? Look at the upside, look at the volume that could mean. But the minute we drop that and go to that £1 price point, then we're just back into the same pool as everybody else. And we call it the pound party that every other brand is in. And the pound party is one in, one out. And this was Haribo will launch a new line and one delists, new line, one delist, new line, one delist. And they're on this kind of forever kind of merry-go-round of trying to sell a bag of sweets at £1. And we're just saying, okay, well, we're not going to go to that party. We've got a better party going on over here. And it's at £3 or £2.50 or whatever. And that is a big sort of, I think, signpost to quality as well for people in the price point. So that's sort of working for us at the moment.
Did you get kickback on pricing? So with the Island's chocolate at the minute, our chocolate is bloody expensive.
Yeah.
As I think Stella say, it's like be reassuringly expensive.
Yeah.
I think it's price isn't a very elastic thing. Did you get kickback from buyers being like, well, hang on a sec, mate, like Haribo's?
Yeah, 100%. And I think I would say that the kickback on that topic is always bigger from the buyer than the consumer. So the buyer that's making those decisions, that price that's 70, 80% more expensive than anything else they list just looks weird in their spreadsheet, right? So when they drop that in, it's like big red flashing alarms that, hang on, this is more expensive than anything else we've ever sold. But the consumer doesn't think like that, okay? So the consumer, I don't believe, thinks about price per gram or direct comparison.
Yeah.
But the buyers get obsessed by these metrics, and rightly so. That's kind of, what they're trained and paid to do. I'm not taking away from that. But on the other side of it, we're able to prove now that it works. So the first time you have those conversations, it's tough. But over the last, 5-6 years, whatever, we've been able to build that case study to say, I know this is going to really scare you, but we can sell a product at this price and look what it's doing. And then once you get past that initial kind of alarm bell in their head, all the benefits that brings, we're able to sell less volume for you, but deliver a higher cash margin. We're able to drag the average transaction in your category up by whatever, we can then offer a big point of difference, and we'll also give you a real kind of good sort of board to play the other brands against as well. To say, okay, why do we have to sell all these brands at £1? Perhaps we can start dragging everybody else up a little bit and not just continually we're sort of putting the plug back in the bath and the value is now building up again rather than letting it all just drain away.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good point. But I think for a lot of people listening, because it's like, sounds easy on paper, but what I'm trying to get in is, like, as I said earlier, it's like every brand has now got competition that's piled in, but it's, with you guys, not really, as far as I can see. What's been sort of the, I know we talked about the gap course, but I think life's a negotiation. As a brand, you're up against big boys, you've got to negotiate. What's been sort of the hardest negotiation you guys have gone through? And like, how did you prepare for that?
I speak probably for every FMCG business in the UK, if not Europe. Over the last 18 months, there's been so much discussion around price because of inflation and all of these external factors that have enforced us to put price increases through to the consumer. That's been really, really tough. And one of the biggest challenges probably since we started the business. But it comes back to this sort of belief in the story and the belief in what we're trying to do. We still know that Candy Kittens can serve a really good, interesting, fun purpose for the consumer. And as long as everything we're doing continues to deliver for the consumer, then the rest of it is just kind of nuts and bolts that you kind of work out in the background, I think. So there's been some tough conversations. And the frustration for me is that you can waste an awful lot of time sort of squabbling over pennies and 0.03 of a penny, when if we just sort of all agreed, okay, let's suck it up. This is what it is. Inflation is here. Food prices are going up. Let's now get on with it. Then we could work out ways of sort of making that more palatable for the consumer or overcoming some of those challenges on a more kind of macro level. And I just think sometimes the way that the industry is set up to have these very small, detailed conversations with a buyer over precise metrics stops that kind of bigger, more creative, more consumer-led, interesting conversation going on. So that was tough, but we've sort of thankfully got through that. We're in a good place. We have a lot of great support from all of our customers that we work with to enable that to happen. And we're now able to sort of move on and do more interesting things, hopefully. So that's kind of hopefully behind us, at least for the time being. So touch wood, we'll get over that for now. But that was the toughest, I think, mainly because it was about passing something on to the consumer that, you know, we wouldn't have done unless we really, really had to. So that sort of hurt.
Yeah, no, it's as you say, it's like, it's such a good answer because everyone's had to go through it over the last, year and a half, 18 months.
Yeah.
But I think what you said there about kind of goes back to this fish and water thing, right? You can get so focused with the buyer, with the retailer, in this sort of myopic, like 0.000 whatever on an Excel spreadsheet. It's like, well, yeah, let's jump out of this pond and go into the consumer's pond and like see what they're actually feeling. And I think it just being able to have that reframe is really powerful.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, you know, we're in a fortunate position as a premium brand in the category as well, that actually a bit of a bump on price for us, which was necessary to keep making the same quality product and delivering everything that Candy Kittens is a bit more palatable for the consumer. When we're talking about some of the everyday products, you know, I would have hated to be working in fresh grocery right now, or those kind of areas where you're seeing the price of basics like potatoes go up 20%. That's bonkers stuff, right? So it's a bit easier where we are. I don't want to sort of plead this kind of sob story, but yeah, it's frustrating more than anything else at times.
One thing I wanted to explore with you is most challenger brands are sort of created by middle class people for middle class, create middle class products for middle class people. And I think there's a huge opportunity where no one's looking in that whole untapped market of people who are up and down the country. Yeah. Would you, I know this kind of goes completely opposite, I just kind of want to explore this. Would you ever think of creating a brand that would create something for that whole untapped need? Because I think brands, as you say, are always going up, always premiumizing. But I think if you kind of have a flight of imagination, look like down, and there's a whole delta of opportunity there. Has that ever crossed your mind? Because
it hasn't really. I think the one thing that I have been really interested in recently, though, is some of the work that they're doing at Iceland with Richard Walker at Iceland. I think is like really onto something, and that whole frozen food space and all of that, the sort of innovation that's going on there. Number one is it much sort of cheap, makes products more affordable, but there's also a huge sustainability benefit to some of those things. And you're right, everybody goes to premiumize. Haven't given it enough thought, but you've maybe sort of planted the seed of an idea. I think that's the thing that is about looking at things differently, right?
Yeah.
So everybody follows that same path. Okay, to challenge means premiumize, but I guess the difficulty is that the retailers have so much own brand, they kind of monopolize that lower price point space. And often the premium, in our case, we didn't, in all honesty, set out to say, okay, let's go for a premium product. We set out to make the best product, and the best product actually ended up becoming, or having a premium price point attached. It became expensive. So we put all this thought and ideas and love into something, and at the end it spat out a bag of sweets at £3. That wasn't the plan. And now we've got there, we've kind of owned the premium. I think that there's ways of doing that differently, probably, with a bit more experience and a bit more of a sort of thought behind it. You could probably attack the other end.
I think so Perry's just, I don't know if you've seen the brand he's working on called Picnic.
Okay, no, don't think so.
He showed me the designs, he's done about 1,000 designs.
Yeah.
But they've basically created a brand. It's a Dutch supermarket.
Okay.
Who have basically cut out all the logistics. You just order through an app, but all the brands, your products you're getting are, in terms of like the good, better, best. Yeah, they're all good, so they're cheap and affordable, but they've got an amazing brand. And he was going crazy. Some of these designs.
Yeah, really excited. I can imagine.
But I was like, because we were talking about, I was like, there's just such an untapped, just left of the market there.
I think the other thing with that, though, which is important to remember, is that food products, and we talked, back to this kind of inflation, boring conversation, but the food has generally been too cheap for too long. So I was listening to Richard Walker from Iceland talking about this recently, and he was saying that an Iceland lasagna was £1 in 1997, and an Iceland lasagna in 2023 is still £1. So whilst everything else around us has moved on in price, and that's probably quite an extreme example, and I may even be misquoting it, but the food hasn't followed inflation generally. So all of a sudden now we're seeing these big 20% rises in price. That's actually just food finally catching up. And I think a lot of supermarkets, all the things about how dairy farmers have been screwed over and price is drilled to the ground, and eggs and all these sort of things that the supermarkets are desperate to get at the lowest possible price point, has kind of squeezed that quality and love out of these categories. And I think this may be part of the reason why people that love and care about the products they're making don't want to enter at that point, because they have sort of too much pride in what they're doing, perhaps, and it's too difficult to make the price points work. That the supermarkets are able to, they throw all of that kind of credibility, if you like, out the window and go, we don't care, we just want it at 50p at all costs.
And thought of it like that. It's like, yeah, because I think that's what James Bailey said to me as well from Waitrose, is that the pricing in food hasn't caught up.
Yeah,
he thought there was going to be a whole movement towards actually way more premium.
Yeah. And it's the same. That things are nicer quality. If you go to a farm shop and buy the local milk or the local bread or the local, wow, I can't believe the bread tastes this good. And that's because it's made properly with nice ingredients. And obviously that's going to taste better than your 19 pence loaf of bread from your local supermarket. So people are happy to pay for it, I think, once you get it right.
For sure. One of the things two of the other ones that you said is on that wall out there, which I think are really good, is be prepared and resourcefulness is the game.
Yeah.
Why are those two up there, and what do they mean for you guys?
So I think resourcefulness, is we're always trying to punch above our weight. That's right. Since day one, and we're still doing that now. And I think that there's always reasons why you can't do something, or why someone can't print the thing you need by Friday, or they can't give you this thing on budget, or that you can't appear at this trade show because of whatever reason. And being able to sort of, I guess, not take no for an answer is probably what that is. And being able to find another way is everything that we're about, because all the reasons I mentioned earlier about the no's that we had around product, don't make it vegan, don't make it in a stand-up pouch, don't do whatever. We had to be resourceful then to sort of ignore that and find someone that would do those things and would say yes. Yeah. So that's really, really important. And just trying to encourage, it's very easy, particularly as you grow and budgets get bigger and teams get more experienced, to fall back into the traps that other businesses do. You take your marketing campaign and you pitch it out to 3 agencies and you pick the one that takes you to the nicest restaurant or whatever. If we start doing that, then we end up back where everybody else is. But if we can continue to be resourceful and say, no, we're not going to go to an agency, we're going to do it in-house, or we're going to do this, or we're going to hand paint that thing that we need to paint, or whatever, I think it's that being scrappy and being sort of a bit more of a fighter in there helps us sort of do it differently.
It's just so, what I'm enjoying so much about this conversation, Ed, is like, you guys are 10 years into this.
Yeah.
And it's a long time for most people listening to. I don't know what the statistics are, but most businesses don't get past year 2 or 3. I don't know what it is. But you've still got this naivety.
Yeah.
Be scrappy, be resourceful, like anything can go attitude. And I think it's so reassuring. What is, Will Chase taught me this thing, which is when you're in the winner's enclosure, you realize that all the fun was in the race, right? And
I like it.
Not saying you're in the winner's enclosure, but what does it feel like for you? Like, what's keeping you awake at night now? Because so many people listening to this thinking, well, they've got a banging brand, they've got a huge office, they've got full distribution in the UK. Like, what's currently keeping you awake at night?
Good question. I think a lot of my focus is around continuing to hold on to the things that make the brand special. So how do we not lose that nice list of kind of words you've reeled off? How do we make sure that the people within this nice office still think like Jamie and I were thinking when we were working from our kitchen table? And that, I think, is something we put a lot of time and energy into. I wouldn't necessarily say it kind of keeps me up at night. I think you've got to be enjoying what you're doing at the same time, right? So enjoying the growth and making time to celebrate some of that success as well, I think is also part of the job. It's really easy for the team to be kind of head down, grinding away at the targets and ticking off all of our objectives and just onto the next one, onto the next one, onto the next one. That's something that we've had to kind of untrain in our own mind. You're never, ever happy. You think when we get that list in, we're going to be there. And then you get there and the goalposts just go a little bit further away again. So making time when you get there to stop and celebrate.
I'm so bad at that. Because I was like, if it's this number, then I'll be happy.
To be fair, that's something that the team has probably taught us. It's like, okay, guys, are we going to go out and have a drink then for that? Are we going to have a party for that? What are we going to do?
Right.
And I think that's been, oh shit, yeah, that is a good achievement. Yeah, we should take a moment and toast at that or whatever. So yeah, those are the things I think, keeping the brand true to its original vision, a kind of brand custodian or whatever is kind of a nice fancy way of saying that. But that's one of the things that I really, really care about and spend a lot of time thinking about. And the next one, which is the biggest probably for me at the moment, is team. So really, really putting a lot of energy into the people that make Candy Kittens what it is now.
And then again, this is just probably quite a hard question, but nonetheless important for listeners because this whole team culture thing is vital. Yeah. But everyone I've interviewed say one dodgy hire can be like quite cancerous to an organization, and it's just like, how do you let go of people like who can, you said what keeps you awake at night is this sort of this brand heart, DNA custodian. Dodgy hires can eviscerate that. Like, how do you specifically let go of people?
Always a tricky one, right? I think that one of the things that we've implemented over the last few years, which is a little bit unusual, I think, is that we have quite a long probation period. So we have this 6-month probation period at Candy Kittens. So standard probation, I think, is probably like 3 months in the UK. And most people probably go through that a little bit kind of sleepwalking, I think. You sort of assume that probation, as long as you don't do something terrible and kind of really, really screw it up, that you're going to have the job still. But for us, we take that 6 months really seriously and try and view it a little bit more like a sports team rather than a family, right? So you have this traditional cliche that is, our business is like a family. We all love each other and we're all great friends. And all that's nice, lovely stuff, don't get me wrong. But if we're actually viewing ourselves as an elite sports team, we are the... think of a good sports team, I don't know, Manchester City.
Right.
If you're told that you didn't train very well this week, so you're not playing on Saturday, you're probably not. You might be frustrated, and it makes you train harder next week. But you're not going to throw your toys out of the pram about it. If you're told in a business that, look, sorry, you're not cutting it, so you're not going to be part of our team anymore, that feels like a disaster. If you're part of the family, because you can't. If you're a family, you can't sack your brother, you can't sack your sister. Whereas actually, I think looking at it as a team is much more of a kind of rational way of thinking. We want to have the best sports team with the very best players. And that's sort of what we're saying with this 6-month probation period is, okay, how do we both work in this kind of two-way conversation to establish that Candy Kittens is the right place for you and you really want to be here and you believe and share in our values and ideas, and it kind of all chimes nicely together. And how do we see you as sort of the future of that business as well? And we know that we're going to be confident working together. And once past that 6 months, job for life, as far as we're concerned, that's not challenged any further. There's no conversations. And you're then on a level playing field where actually you're having that kind of adult to adult conversation and you're working with each other to develop each other's best interests. Whereas I think the 3-month thing, and then actually you don't really know anyone in 3 months, 6 to 12 months in, you then go, oh my God, actually not who I thought they were. Okay, now we need to have a really awkward, difficult conversation. It's going to be really painful. Whereas if you have all that difficult bit up front and you really get to know someone, you stress test everything, you push them really hard, they push you really hard on, I need this from the employer, I need this, look, you stress test it as much as possible, as early as possible, and then you can just focus on
It's just that
enjoying it.
It's just this delicious reframe of like, see it as, because it is in like, oh my God, 200 million, like we're a family, welcome to the family.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually like, not really. We're to like, it's a high performance environment.
Yeah, and that's I think we want to be the best.
Yeah,
and I think people shy away from that quite a lot. There's this kind of,
especially in the UK.
Yeah, maybe it's like people call it NIMBYism or whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's a big problem for Brits at the moment, and everybody's too nice, and everybody wants to sort of be quite soft and think about all the nice things. And my office gives me free coffee, and it gives me yoga, and it gives me this, and all some of the things we do as well. But it's much nicer to do those once you're all on the same page, and actually you're rewarding success and effort at that point. You're not just rewarding people turning up. So if you want to be somewhere that's the best, then you should expect to.
Well, as I was saying to you, like we call it FMCG, they call it CPG, but I've been going to New York to that interview. I've been listening to loads of podcasts they do. Like even the terminology they use over there, like he's a killer, he's a savage,
he's
crushing it, like hustle, like all these American words. Yeah. And I sort of sat there being such a sardonic English person or British person, being like, oh my God, it's so cringe. But it's actually, you're right, because we probably are too a bit soft over here and a bit not wishy-washy, but it's it's just because someone's coming into the family, it makes it much harder to let them go. Yeah. If someone's going to come into a team, it makes it much easier to let them go, and actually much easier for them to go as well.
And if you to go back to the sports analogy, if I turned up for my first day of training at Man City, I'd expect it to be bloody hard.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't you expect it to be tough? Your first 6 months at Candy Kittens or whatever organisation that you're striving to be a part of, you should also probably go into that thinking it's going to be quite tricky.
And do you, like, just to go a bit more into that, because I think there's, like, I know there's been some people listed that's been hiring car crashes, right? So do you say to them, like, right, this is going to be, this 6 months is going to be rigorous? Like, do you say to them, we think of this like a sport team, you want to be the best? Like, how are you delivering that message, and how are you checking in?
Yeah, so we'd be pretty open and honest, right? So the first month, we don't really expect any work from anyone. The first month is get to know your team, ask us a million questions, keep asking us questions, and we repeat that again and again and again. Really, really understand Candy Kittens and the individuals that are sat around you. That's the first thing, right? You can't really expect anybody, if you come in as a new account manager, are you going to really come and double the sales in the first month? Just like, forget it. It's just understand who we are and what you're selling. And then we have a sort of 30, 60, 90 day kind of objectives that get given on the day one. Those get talked about. We then have a whole diary for probably the first 2 weeks of one-on-ones with every single person in the company. We then check in once a month through that first 6, where we're checking in on that and having really honest conversations. How do you like to receive feedback? How would you want? What more do you want from us? How do you think it's been so far? What do you think we're getting wrong? What do you think you're getting wrong? Has it lived up to your expectations? Has it, asking all of these things and trying to really just encourage a culture of openness. And it's quite easy for me to say that now when we've got to a point 10 years, 11 years, where we're I think, doing that quite well. But it's taken lots of failures along the way, and loads of times, and there might even be people listening that go, he's talking through his arse, because it wasn't like that when I was there. But that's how we've learned, right? We've made lots of mistakes along the way, and we've really, really invested and spent a lot of time in trying to perfect that process, I think, to get to a point where we're really proud of it now. Yeah, and also I think it's as you say, I think every brand to get to 10 years goes through a lot of painful mistakes. And it's almost, as we were saying earlier, when you look at values, look at the opposite to find the source of that value. Yeah. So the reason you're doing this, not rigmarole, but this process is because there's been mistakes previously. Yeah. And I think there's value in that. And I think there's the mistake on our part was thinking that you could just do that automatically. Yeah, well, I was going to say, you didn't have to put effort into that stuff. You can just, he seems like a nice guy. Cool, let's crack on. It'll work itself out later. But putting that rigor in actually helps us be really, really tough on each other.
Yeah.
And I think also seeing it as a two-way street is a different thing as well. The big mistake, probably more so on employees' part than employers, I think, is that the employee thinks that all the decision is on the employer. So we can choose whether we hire you, whether we fire you, whether we have a difficult conversation or a nice conversation, if we give you a pay rise, whatever. Whereas actually the employee, I think, has a lot more power in this kind of relationship than you would often give yourself credit for. So in an interview process, you should be also interviewing the person interviewing you to understand, do I want to work for this guy or girl? And, so many people come into interview and say, have you any questions? No, not really. Or they'll ask questions that are just the textbook questions because they're the things they've Googled that you should ask. But it really understanding, like, what kind of manager are you? What kind of leader are you? What do you think about this topic? What do you think about that one? And I think the best work relationships happen where you have a lot of things that are common ground between you and the team. So that's what we're always striving for, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I think it's almost not using, but the employee, when in that first 6 months, is actually reinforcing your culture.
Yeah.
By asking the questions. So it's actually, it's a symbiotic relationship.
And also that they have a chance, everybody has a chance at Candy Kittens to mold the culture as well, right? So we have a lot of common ground, but we all come from different places, and it kind of meets in the middle, like this sort of Venn diagram thing. And if you're asking those questions, why don't we do this? Well, have we thought about this thing? Why are our meetings 3 hours long? I think they should be half an hour. Yeah. Okay, cool. Good idea. Let's change it. And whereas if you're a sort of silent employee that just kind of goes through the motions, that thing is probably the reason why you're going to leave. Yeah. But if you just bring it up, maybe it could change.
Yeah. And then just the flip side of this is how do you keep great talent? Because, Man City, if they're going to go back there, like Kevin De Bruyne or Haaland, like they may get her off from Real Madrid with like, right, we're going to pay you 2 zillion bags a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another, to play the flip side of that, keeping great talent's hard.
It is tough, I think. So I think there's a couple of things. I think you should, a basic is to pay people well.
Yeah.
Always. And I think there's a saying that you can never pay your best person too much. No, sorry. I'll go again.
Yeah, go.
Grab that. So I think there's a saying that is, you can never pay your best person enough, only your worst person too much. And I think, this idea that if you've got someone really, really good, you find a way of keeping them, and money makes up a big part of that. But it's only one kind of piece of the puzzle. I think the most important parts are everybody needs to really, really enjoy the job.
Yeah.
I think people have to feel like they have a genuine contribution and can make a real difference within their role. So coming to work every day and just being told what to do, you might be able to do it brilliantly and you tick it off, and you might then get a bonus every time you do it. But if it's someone else's idea that you're always executing, at some point you might say, okay, well, I'd rather have my own ideas. So being able to impart your creativity and your touch on a business, I think, is really important. And I think everybody that's worked at Candy Kittens will be able to tell you at least one thing that they've done to change the shape of the business. So that is probably the one standout thing for me that allows people to really enjoy what we do here. And yeah, constantly reviewing it, constantly looking at it. And as I say, what's one of the reasons why it's one of the biggest things on my mind, how do we keep people and make it the best place to work?
It's such good, just a good point. And I love, to be honest, I've explored things with you today that I haven't explored with any guest before. Yeah. And I love doing it because it's just...
No, it's good fun.
Points of reframing. A few more things I want to explore, then we'll wrap this up. But one constant theme from Will Chase, Juliet Barrett from Grenades, is this ability to withstand pain. They've all said it. It's like in this founder's journey, is this ability to stand pain, whether that's literal setbacks or sometimes just like the tedium of day to day.
Yeah.
I'd love to know. So the quote by the guy from Four Seasons: "Excellence is the ability to withstand pain."
Yeah.
What is your ability to take pain? Like, how do you take pain?
I think it's how you probably define pain. that's quite important.
Here we go. Yeah.
So in my mind, so one of the biggest mistakes that I think people often make is having an arrogance to think that their idea is going to win first time. So you go and get your setback from a buyer. Is that pain? For some people, it probably is the thing that they talk about withstanding pain. But actually, we would often go into those conversations assuming that we're going to lose. Not in a negative way, as in you obviously believe the story at one point, but don't go in being so arrogant that you think that this person's going to absolutely bite my arm off for this. We know that we're an underdog. So actually, when you get that kickback or you get the door slammed in your face, it's not as painful because you've already built yourself up to accept the pain.
Yeah.
So I think, if you run a marathon, do you run the marathon thinking it's not going to hurt? Probably not. And I think that's sort of how we deal with the pain. You sort of go into it expecting it and maybe even sort of overinflating how bad it's going to be. And then by the time you get there, it's not as bad as you think. Then the pain is more tolerable.
Yeah. I think one of your superpowers, like just speaking to you, is this ability to reframe things.
Well, maybe.
And like, whether it's the negotiation or the way, reframing from family to team or sports team, reframing. And I think that's really valuable. What I've done with this is like, this could take me 7, 8, 9, 10 years before it gets that uptake, right? So I just need to accept, but that reframe has been.
But if you've accepted that, when you get to where you get to, and I'm sure you're going to get there in 5 or 6, then it's going to feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I've given myself till 9. Now I've got there in 5, winner. Whereas if you actually went, I think I could do it in 2, but it takes you 5. Yeah. That's a killer.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of maybe it is a reframing of things, but that's probably how we've started to think about it. And then I guess our body armor, if you like, our kind of protective shield has always been the brand. And we just know that the brand is strong and have put everything into that. And at times where we shouldn't have or couldn't invest as much as we'd like to, we sort of put everything into that brand and over-invested to keep making the brand bigger, keep appearing bigger. I talked to you just before we started recording about going to trade shows and trying to have the bigger stand just to kind of show your growth or whatever. Those things I think have been important to us, where we have managed to deflect some of the kind of pain that was pointed at us by putting the brand front and center every time and keep coming back to that.
And what about more like a sort of a personal level with the role? Like, it's not easy being a founder. It's a very hard job.
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with that personally? Has there been any personal sort of examples along over the 10 years?
Yeah, I think it can be quite tough. I think one of the, I guess, sort of coping mechanisms, people would call it, which I don't really think about, has been that I've got a natural ability, luck, if you like, to be able to just turn off quite quickly. So I can turn things off and on, and I probably won't talk too much about work at home if I can help it. I don't. My wife says, "Oh, how was today?" I don't want to talk about it. What are we doing tonight? And not because I'm sort of in a grump or because I don't feel enthused, but if I then spend my whole evening talking about the stuff I've spent all day talking about, then I'm sick of my own voice and sick of the same old story. So I think having clear breaks is really important. I think people can be super hard on themselves as well, where it's like this sort of always on hustle culture. There's no harm in going away for the weekend with your friends or going off and taking a few days off here and there. We had a conversation with someone in the team recently that was super paranoid about taking their holiday, because they felt that if they took their holiday, then that thing wasn't going to happen and that thing wasn't going to happen, and there was no cover and nobody else knew how to run this system and that thing. And actually, I think for that person particularly, then taking a week off and realizing that the world doesn't stop was actually really refreshing, and a moment of going, okay, everything's okay. Maybe I can do that more often, and you can take that, big sigh of relief. So yeah, take your holidays. Take a break and maybe find other things to talk about than yourself and your own mission, I think, sometimes.
Mate, I mean, that's reassuring for me, because like I'm so bad at doing that.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at, just having an off switch. And one of the issues is this feels a lot of the time like play. It doesn't feel like work. So it's like when I had a job, I was doing this as pleasure.
Of course.
Whereas now this is kind of the full-time thing. It's like, you've got to put some sort of boundaries in. Otherwise it's just fucking
all
nuts.
blur into everything.
Yeah. It's one big thing.
It's really, I'm really conscious when I answer these questions of sounding sort of like I've smashed it and I'm there and it's completed it. But it's a work in progress, right? You always work towards these things and we know where we want to get to and how we want it to be.
Yeah.
There are times definitely where I haven't nailed it, but overall I'm pretty lucky in that I can and always have been able to. Even back at uni, I was able to study hard, 9 till 5 or whatever, and then have an evening doing something else. Whereas mates would sort of talk about it all day and then spend all night in the library and actually how good was your work between 2 a.m. and 4, probably really bad.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, just trying to be really work smart, not hard that's
one thing I've done now that I'm not really in an office is I'll start really early and then from like 1 till probably 4 do fuck all. Like I may go to the gym, chill, and then do like 2 more hours, and that to me works. So I get enough of a switch.
Yeah, really nice.
But that works.
And everybody works differently, right? There might be people that need the evening slot is where they work best, or the morning, or whatever. And I think finding what works for you, but separating the time is important.
Yeah. Look, I'm absolutely loving this, mate, but conscious of your time. So I want to end on a few things. So we started with the power of doing one thing well.
Yep.
I want to end on kind of one thing. So, you've got a son, a baby son now.
Yep.
Not sure, how old is he?
He's coming up to 2 years old.
2 years old. So I'd love to know everything you've learned. Like, what's one thing you'd pass on to him? I know he's only like a little bubba now, but it's just a really good lens to explore things.
Yeah, I think it probably goes back to the stuff that my parents taught me around. Yeah, nobody's too good or kind of above you. You can give everything a go. And I think sometimes we put people on a pedestal too quickly and can convince yourself that, oh my God, I can't possibly go and have that conversation with that guy because he's the trading director at Tesco or whatever, and I'm just this minnow. And I think that that's something that we're all on the same level. We're all just people. And I was always encouraged growing up to, go and talk to everyone, ask lots of questions, go and speak. We're all the same. And I think that's something that, you treat everybody at every level the same way, whether that's someone more senior or someone more junior or whatever the dynamics might be. We're all just as important as each other. And it sounds a little bit worthy, but I think you see it time and time again where people treat others differently because of some kind of perceived status. And I think it's an easy trap to fall into.
I think so. That's one of the things people say to me with the podcast. Like, do you get nervous interviewing people?
Yeah.
And I was like, I do, but like ultimately the way I see it, maybe it's a reframe that I do, is it's like they're just people.
Yeah.
They laugh, cry, shit, piss. We're just human beings.
Yeah.
They're
It's
not...
funny. We had last week, we went out for dinner with a couple of people that we would deem quite important.
Who are they? School, can you not say?
Yeah, well, there's a few different occasions, but one of them, there's some buyers, some senior people from retailers. There's a couple of people that are kind of investors and different things. And we talked through lots of stuff. And coming out of those meetings, we also, he's actually just a really nice bloke, isn't he? Or, he's actually just a really nice lady. And then you think, hang on a minute, why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they just be a normal bloke? And that, I think, is, it's really important to keep that in mind.
When I said that what is one truth you believe that everyone else would probably disagree with?
Yeah.
The biggest learning from this podcast, I think most people think that to make it in business, as you said, there's almost this big fish, small fish minnow, as you so rightly said. And it's like, oh, he won't speak to me. I think that's in the middle and it's a really crowded place, but I think it's actually bollocks.
Yeah.
The biggest learning I've learned from this podcast is the people that soar upwards are actually just super nice.
Exactly. And I think people can learn, you can learn from every level, right? So we learned loads when we were starting out from people that had really been there and done that, and big CEOs of big companies that we were able to speak to. And just through asking the question, can you give us half an hour for a coffee? And 9 times out of 10, people say yes. Or people that are just, now we speak to people who have just started, they've got 0 revenue, and their way of thinking is teaching us something else. So you can learn at all different levels. I think it's really important. Yeah.
Final bit. So what's the one piece of advice you'd give Ed for the next 10 years of Candy Kittens? We've kind of looked retrospectively, but I suppose looking prudently.
Yeah. I think don't forget what you started is probably the most important thing that I'm trying to remember. You know, we started this to come in and change a category and offer the consumer something better. So if we can keep doing that and not fall into the traps of, okay, now we've got to this level, let's find some efficiencies in the product. Let's bring this in, let's bring that in. Let's kind of streamline and do the things that big businesses do.
Yeah.
I think you can lose the magic pretty quick. So not losing sight of what we started is probably, for me, the
big one.
The thing I hope I can achieve in 10 years.
And would you ever, I just got to ask this, have you thought about selling it? Is that a game plan? Is that like, where's your head at with that? Because every founder I've interviewed that has sold says it's the worst day of their life.
Yeah, exactly. And you hear all these stories, right? That are kind of quite scary. We, I think for us, as long as we're enjoying it, and we still are, then why would you do anything else? And I think there's this big culture in the UK particularly, maybe it comes from the US, of build it, flip it, build it, flip it. And I don't really know where that comes from, because obviously there's a financial element to it. But once you've sold it, then you kind of, all that stuff you've learned and everything you've been amassed is like, oh shit, what do I do with all that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we have a partner in Germany who is also a shareholder in the business that we work really closely with. And the Germans have a much more generational view of businesses, and they would build companies not for themselves, but for the next 3 generations or more. And a lot of the biggest corporations in Germany are all family owned still to today. So it's a much different way of thinking. You think of like the Adidas, the VW, the big businesses, Haribo, these are all family owned organizations. And that is something that I think it's a totally different way of thinking. So then when you're making decisions, you're not thinking about this year's P&L. You're actually thinking about 50 years' time. Is this the right thing for my grandson? Which suddenly just completely shifts the conversation to a different place. So we're not quite there yet, but inspired by that, and keep thinking, okay, how do we then focus more on legacy and long-term sort of vision?
Mate, I've loved it. And I think, what you've said there is, again, that's another reframe. As it's like, and I think a pernicious thing is this, right? Build it, flip it. I don't know where that is, probably, flown across the pond, but it's just weird. It's like, if you're loving doing something, keep doing it. But yeah, I've absolutely loved it. I think kind of, as I say, always this sort of central learning comes up. And I think speaking to you is this ability to just to reframe. Yeah. And by reframing, you've done that on every kind of level of the business. You're probably one of the only brands, in my opinion, that don't have competition, really. And it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
No, I really enjoyed it, and congratulations on what you're doing. I think it's exciting. I think I hope the grocers are looking over their shoulder.
Oh, fingers crossed, sons.